Meta Platforms has spent the last decade trying to build out its own virtual reality business, and it really hasn't been all that successful. So the next step for the company is now opening up the operating system, basically taking the Microsoft approach that Bill Gates implemented with Windows and DOS to try to take over and add value to the virtual reality business. So instead of Meta's operating system being proprietary to Meta headsets, what used to be Oculus headsets, we're going to now see that operating system be included with other devices made even for Microsoft, which I think is an interesting development. I don't know if this is going to necessarily be successful, but with Apple introducing the Vision Pro, it's clear that Apple is going to be probably the best suited to have this vertically integrated ecosystem where they're making the hardware and the software, and then you just have an app store that people can plug into, that they really control that device. But the more open system, as you would call it, needs to be the alternative. And Meta looks like it's taking that alternative approach. This is not the way they have operated things in the past. Yes, you've been able to sideload or use MetaQuest Labs to get different content to people, but it's been very, very difficult to use. So this could potentially be a way to open up things a little bit more and take a little bit of that control away and maybe grow the ecosystem as a result. Like I said, don't know if this is going to be successful, but I think it's worth digging into what the plan is and what the strategy is for Meta, because it worked for Microsoft, so it's possible that it could work again. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content, and thanks to this video's sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. Let's dig into exactly what was announced this week. This was the official announcement from Meta saying, introducing our open mixed reality ecosystem. And what they're doing is they're taking the operating system and opening that up to other hardware manufacturers. So it says right here, we're opening up the operating system that powers Meta Quest devices to third-party hardware makers. The start of the Meta Quest system was actually Android, but they've now modified it in such a way that they're allowing other people to use that as well. We're working with leading technology companies. I'll get to a few of those in just a second, but they want to create a new ecosystem of devices. So the idea would be maybe one hardware is making a device that's really great for office use, and another hardware maker is using one that's very high end with better resolution, so great for gaming at home. Another one is maybe making one for fitness. So there might be different use cases, and one piece of hardware doesn't maybe answer all of those for the entire ecosystem. So what they're calling this is the Meta Horizon OS. This is a mixed reality operating system that operates the Meta Quest headsets. They use inside-out tracking, self-track controllers, and there's also the ability to track hands as well. And then for mixed reality, they say they've built a full stack of technology for blending digital and physical worlds. So this would be basically, you can have a piece of hardware that is a VR headset, or what you would call an AR headset, or kind of a pass-through headset. So many different use cases with their own scene understanding and spatial anchors. The initial pieces of hardware that were announced is Asus's Republic of Gamers, a headset from Lenovo, and Xbox and Meta actually worked together to have a Xbox Cloud gaming headset. So that's going to actually include an Xbox branded headset with Game Pass on it as well. Again, like a lot of the Microsoft ecosystem that was run primarily on Intel chips, this is going to be built with Snapdragon processors from Qualcomm. Now, this isn't the only company that's ever done this. Microsoft tried to do this with what they called their mixed reality product. They had a few manufacturers that did make headsets, but it just didn't get a lot of traction, and so they basically gave up on that. And Meta has actually moved into the lead as far as headsets goes and the number of headsets sold. So it makes sense for at least one of these operating systems, and then all of the other companies in the ecosystem are either going to provide software, which now can go through Meta's App Store or through effectively sideloading as well, which will be a little bit easier. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. The theory here is that you have one operating system that can be made with multiple devices, and then lots of different applications can be installed on that operating system. So it's basically the same thing that Intel and Microsoft did to control the PC ecosystem. You have an open ecosystem where you've built a platform, and then you have developers and users on two sides, and then you don't have to worry about making the hardware. So potentially this is a very attractive business. The problem is Meta, even building its own devices, has not gained much traction. And you can see that with the numbers from Reality Labs, both revenue and operating losses. These are last 12-month numbers. So annual numbers here, you can see that $2 billion in revenue, and that's been basically flat since 2021. So not a lot of increased traction in selling more headsets, and losses are just astounding, about $16 billion per year that Meta is burning on the Reality Labs business. So not a lot of payoff for them with virtual reality or mixed reality headsets, maybe a little bit more traction with something like the Ray-Ban sunglasses. But if you're throwing all this money into this ecosystem, you may at least try to open it up and try to get other people to build and sell headsets for you. I think that's ultimately the goal for Meta, is trying to at least make the ecosystem work, because right now you can see that it isn't working. There just isn't adoption for headsets. So is there some sort of innovation that can happen if somebody else is building devices? This is what we saw with a lot of different devices in the PC market. If you were around in the 80s or 90s, PCs were improving at an incredibly rapid rate. And you had all kinds of interesting business models from companies like Gateway and Dell that were selling PCs directly to consumers, creating all kinds of different designs. You started with desktops and then ended up with laptops. Not all of those things could be made if it was just one product company. And Apple really tried to do this, and they lost the market because people wanted different things from their devices. So a much more open ecosystem could potentially work in the virtual reality space, partially because there's so many different use cases and one company can't make a product for every single use case. We've seen that with something like the Apple Vision Pro. Very expensive, very high-end headset. What if you want to use that for working out? Are you going to want to get your $3,500 headset all sweaty? Maybe not. So that's the kind of thing that it makes sense to have a lot of companies trying different devices. And given the lack of success with Meta Reality Labs, I think it's obvious that they need to try something new. So I think this is probably a move in the right direction. It also takes a little bit of pressure off them from selling those Quest headsets. But it will be interesting to see where this goes long term, because I could potentially seeing Meta eventually spitting this out to be its own business. If Reality Labs and this Horizon operating system isn't successful, what sense does it make having it with Meta as a business? It doesn't really have any connection to the family of apps. It's become a major, major money loser. And if we move to something like artificial intelligence, where Meta is investing tens of billions of dollars, this could just be a distraction from another core business. So that's another thing to think about with this, is if you're starting to license this to other people, are you laying the groundwork for this to be a product that is going to stand on its own as its own business? That, I think, could be really interesting, because it would allow for more experimentation outside of Meta's ecosystem. But this is the first step in potentially that direction, but at least trying something new to have a little bit more open ecosystem. Strategically, probably the right move for Meta, but may not be successful as well. At least Mark Zuckerberg is trying some of the things that were successful for Bill Gates in the 1980s and 90s. But what do you think about Meta's new operating system? Leave your comments in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.